Well, good morning, brothers and sisters. I was told to raise my voice, so be careful. So I have in front of me my talk. I have redundancy 1, and I have redundancy 2, because technology is not always my friend. But I think we'll be okay. You've probably heard the public seminar series, Learn to Read the Bible Effectively. Who's heard that? Have you heard about that? Yeah. Okay, right group. But what I want to achieve today is something a little different. I want to learn to enjoy the Bible. We can call that effectively, but let's learn to enjoy it. And by enjoying it, I believe that will actually help us on our road to being the exception. We got to get back into loving this book, loving the Word of God. We need to read it differently, perhaps. We don't want it to be stale. Read it with more excitement, with more understanding, with anticipation, with what's to come, and in so doing, just change our lives. It can do that. We're going to see that. So, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you recognize the biblical reference to armhole pillows, not because you've looked it up, because you heard the title. How many have heard the biblical verse, armhole pillows? I'm in the right group. But it's there. I was dumbfounded when I saw this. I'm thinking, I've done my daily readings over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden I read again Ezekiel 13, verse 18, in the King James Version. Let's get this right. And say, thus saith the Lord, woe to women who sew pillows to all armholes, and make kerchiefs upon the head of every stature to hunt souls. Will ye hunt the souls of my people? Will you save the souls alive that come unto you? I was, what is an armhole pillow? So, of course, I didn't have other versions for a long time. I was trying to figure this out. You look this up in the concordance, but then you go to the other versions, the ESV, NIV, ESV, thus saith the Lord, woe to the women that sew magic bands on all wrists. The NIV says that sew magic charms. You know the old charm bracelets, the little charms that go on there? Well, those actually have an origin back here where they were something magical for people.
Okay.
Not in a good way. Magic charms.
What mess?
Oh, sorry, that was Ezekiel 13, verse 18. And then it's repeated, a couple verses down again. Now, those other versions kind of bring it out correctly, all right? But I want to make a comment here. Right now, we're going to look at this. There is no room for version smugness. Right? We can't be too version biased. And I got caught up in this, in the search of finding the best, if not the perfect version. I grew up with the King James, and I think I understood it fairly well. And then I was given, Nestine, from one of my birthdays, she gave me a small RSV I'd keep in the car, and I noticed some little differences here and there. So I could just have it when I was work break here and there. And then I got an interlinear with the RV, with the King James, and kind of see those differences. And then I read somewhere and I talked to some other ones who said the NASB, how many NASBs do we have here? That is the most literal, although it's a bit woody. Woody? Stiff. Okay. So upon more investigation, I learned literal doesn't necessarily give the sense of meaning intended in the Hebrew and the Greek. So on with my search, and nevertheless, I have copies of the New King James, the NIV, the New Revised Standard Version, the Holman Christian Standard Version. I'm going to tell you, I like this one, 2003 or 2007. Don't do 2017. It gets very specific here. Translators monkey with things at times, and we're going to see that. Oh, did I forget? There's one called the Keys of the Kingdom Bible. There's the European version, Brother Duncan Heister did. There's the Message. That's not a version, by the way. That's a paraphrase, totally a paraphrase. There is the Living Bible. That's based on the original Living Bible. There's the New Living Bible, which actually gives some good vernacular, but you got to be careful, all right? It takes a lot of liberties as well. But it can help in modern English to understand some things. Then there's the Net Bible. And of course the ESV. How many ESVs? A lot of ESVs? No? A little smattering. Okay. And of course then I found on my iPad, my iPhone, I have the U version. Does anybody use U version? There's apparently, I didn't know this because I only have about 25 versions downloaded. There's 3,000 you can choose. Versions. That's unbelievable. And of course, as the saying goes, the best version is the Bible you have with you and that you read. The Word of God, the hope of salvation, can be found. So I want to give you a look at a verse in some of the more modern versions. All right, because that Ezekiel was really weird. Armhole pillows. So I'm leery of the King James. But let's go to the NIV. John 1:18. No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God, and is in closest relationship with the Father. What? He has made him known. ESV. No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known. The NASB, no one has ever seen God at any times. God, the only Son, who is in the arms of the Father. He has explained him. This isn't ringing true from what I know. The King James, that archaic one. No man has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father. He hath declared him. Now, if you're familiar with the Net Bible, is anybody familiar with the Net Bible? When I first heard about the Net Bible, I thought it was the Internet Bible. It's actually a New English translation. That's all that it means. And there's 60,000 footnotes from scholars who help wrestling through sometimes challenging or changed passages. And they bring out a bit of the history of what's gone on a passage. So I went to the footnotes there. And it says here in their notes, John 1:18, the textual problem, the only God verse, the only Son, is a notoriously difficult one. Only one letter could have or would have differentiated the reading from the manuscript, since both words have been contracted themselves. And then notes go on that these alternate translations don't make sense. This is their observation. They don't make sense in the context of the statement. Now it's interesting, the Net Bible puts only God, not only Son. But their commentary says otherwise. And then it goes on, another scholar, his name is J.K. Elliott, quite the title, Emeritus Professor of the New Testament Textual Criticism, University of Leeds, UK, holds doctorates at the University of Oxford, PhD, and University of Wales, Doctorate of Divinity. He put forth the following on this passage. Some scribes, reflecting the theological concerns of their communities, and determined to enhance Jesus' status, altered the original Son, the word Son, with all its subordinationist baggage that it carries. They could not accept that he was lesser because it didn't match their theology that they had predetermined. So they changed it to God, thereby for themselves affirming his divinity and deity. Voila, problem solved. So what it says is it was changed on purpose because the only begotten Son didn't align or wasn't powerful enough to what the church wanted. Other scholars believe it was a transcriptional error that occurred in the Alexandrian manuscript because of certain abbreviations that got used, and it was accidental. But our title, Armhole Pillows, has a subtitle, and other lessons of careful Bible reading. Because the simple, careful Bible reading approach with Scripture is where John identifies Jesus as the only begotten Son in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And then, of course, in John 3 and 18, he says the same thing, the only begotten Son. That's the one they've messed with. But then again, in 1 John, John repeats again in John 4 and 9, in this was manifest the love of God toward us, because God sent his only begotten Son into the world that we might live through him. Now here's the interesting point. Those other manuscripts don't change those other passages where it says only begotten Son. It's the same exact phrase, the same exact words, and they don't change it. So we use this as introduction to some careful Bible reading, because when we come back to Caleb, you say, what does this have to do with Caleb? Absolutely nothing, other than read the accounts carefully. Because when we read carefully any of the Bible record, things will come alive. Let me give another example. How about some passages like 1 Corinthians 2 and 9. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. How many have heard when you say that, so we just can't imagine the wonders of the kingdom. We have what God has prepared for us. It's just beyond us. Now, that may be true to some degree. It may be, but that really wasn't the point that Paul was making when we read verse 10 in that same chapter. But these things God has revealed unto us through his Spirit. For the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. And Jesus in his revelation through the angel to John in Revelation 21, 3 and 4, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eye. And the death shall be no more, and neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. I think we get a picture of the things that God has in store. Can you just imagine from the announcement we had, the pain and the sorrow would be done away with when that day comes? It's a beautiful picture. The point is, though, brothers and sisters, in that first part of that verse, verse 9, what's to be understood is it's not in the heart of man to know. Rather, it's through the mind of Christ. It's through the Spirit of God, the things that he's revealed to us. The imagination of man's heart's only evil continually, and without this word, we won't understand. Without the mind of Christ, we won't understand. Without another spirit, that's our topic tomorrow, that's how Caleb understood things. Let's go back to Caleb for a moment. Careful Bible reading. How many knows do you know what the name Caleb means? Just shout it out. Dog. You know, it's a dog. Really connects that Gentile connection, Kenizzite and everything else. So you want to debate he wasn't a Gentile, just keep going. I'm not gonna waver from that. However, and it's not a way that I would traditionally look at translating names, although sometimes it's significant when it's a name in a context. So the name Caleb is two different words, Kal and Lev. Kal, C-O-L, all or whole, and Lev, heart. Wholehearted. That's repeated over and over and over again. You know, the breaking up a word isn't necessarily intended to do, but in this case we see that is how Caleb is described. I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. And it's just interesting, it's a play on his name, on the breakdown of those two syllables of his name, how it's described. And so I started thinking about it. What about in the vernacular today? Maybe that's where we get the phrase, like a dog with a bone who won't let go. That's how I picture Caleb. Like he had his eyes set on what we're going to see this. We're going in. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We're going in wholeheartedly. that wasn't the reception he received from his brethren. So we might actually save some time today, right? Might end a little sooner. I was going to take your 5-minute warning away from you, but I decided not to do that. I want you at this stage, if you have a Bible app open, I want you to close it. If you have a Bible open, I want you to close it. So you just have to listen at this point. In Numbers 13, the spies were sent to search out the land. Now let's think about it. They were chosen to spy. They were leaders, one version says. Rulers, another version says. They were individuals thought to be strong, courageous, faithful. These are the ones you want to go search out the land. Ones that would be prepared to take on a dangerous mission. Being a spy and being found out in any country is not a good thing. Not healthy. But we think about what happened within 40 days of them spying out the land. We know the story. We know the account. It wasn't good. But why didn't they think back to just a short period of time? Maybe it was a year, I don't know exactly, when Moses was in the mount for 40 days, and then how the people rebelled and how God brought judgments upon them for their rebellion with the golden calf of Egyptian origin. They rose up to play before the Lord, not in a good way. Why wouldn't they have learned from this? Why wouldn't that echo? 40 days, 40 days. In Numbers 13 and 1, and this is where careful Bible reading comes in, and maybe you already know this, because as some say, we're well learned in the scripture. Did God really say, send thou men? Numbers 13, listen carefully. And the Lord spake to Moses, saying, send thou men, that they may search out the land of Canaan, which I give to the children of Israel, of every tribe of their fathers. Ye shall send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses, by the commandment of the Lord, sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All those were heads of the children of Israel. Simple. The Lord said. Then you go to Deuteronomy 1, when Moses recounts what happened. Deuteronomy 1, verse 21. Behold, the Lord thy God has set the land before thee. Go up and possess it. This is what Moses is telling the people. As the Lord thy God of thy fathers said unto thee, fear not, neither be discouraged. And here it comes. And ye came near to me, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us. And they shall search out the land and bring us word again by which way we should go up, and into which city we shall come. And Moses said, the saying pleased me. And I took 12 of you, one of a tribe. That's when the Lord said, send men. Because they wanted to do it. God didn't need to send anybody. He just said, go, don't fear, don't be dismayed, go. Now picture Caleb. Okay, let's go. All right, oh, they want to send men. All right, we'll do it. We'll go see what it's like and come back and report. They were leaders in their tribes, brave, strong. Do we get the sense from Deuteronomy, though? The passage where Moses recounts these things as they unfold, that just perhaps doubts were already starting to rise in the minds of some. These are the same people who have murmured 10 times now, right, through the wilderness wanderings, despite all the miracles, everything that they've seen. Caleb was just ready. Just ready. There was no need to spy. And in our last class, we're going to see, for anticipation, expectation, Caleb, I don't believe, went in as a spy. He went in a different way. And as we fast forward to contrast how the Lord dealt with that 40-day trial in the wilderness of full faith of our Lord, look at the contrast, the faith of the Lord Jesus in 40 days. And we could go on. I don't know if anybody's ever done a study of all the 40s, but it just starts popping all over the place here. All of these 40s that come out. And it's a wonderful thing for careful Bible readers to look and explore and see the connections that come. We know the 40 years get connected to their 40 days of unfaithfulness. But there's so many more. Goliath stood before David and before Israel 40 days, taunting them. I better not. We'll never get done. Now, all the Bibles are closed. You got a quiz. Did you know you're going to get a quiz? All right, maybe you're really good at this and better than I am, because I've done this a number of times and I still don't know the answer off the top of my head. That's why I have it written down. Name any one of the other 10 spies. No, not Joshua, not Caleb. Any one of the other 10. Pardon? Who? Asher? No, Asher. It's a good guess. You know what? I've read this time and time again. And maybe you're just being nice and not telling me. All right? But the names are there. There's Shamua. Let's think of the whale. Right? Shaphat. All right? Igal. Palti. Gadiel. Gadai. Amiel. Sether. Nabai. Geuel. They're all there. And I've read it, and I've done this talk, this part of it, and I still couldn't remember without writing. I had to add it into my notes because I know I wouldn't remember them. Do you know why? On the one hand, they're not meant to be memorable because of what they reported. But they are there for a reason, because of their lack of faith. And we're going to see in just a moment something more about that. For the same reason, their lack of faith. The people were now to wander for 40 days, 40 years, because of the unbelief and unfaithfulness. But the fate of the spies was different. I had missed this. I don't know how I missed this. I just thought they all wandered. Numbers 14 and 36. And this comes out in what God revealed about himself. When God says he's long-suffering and merciful, forgiving thousands and forgiving iniquity unto the third and fourth generation, but not clearing the guilty. Numbers 14:36, and the men which Moses sent to search out the land, who returned and made all the congregation murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land, even those men that did bring up an evil report on the land died by the plague before the Lord, before the wandering started. That's a scary thought. The warning comes out to us. It's in the New Testament. My brother, be not many masters, be not many teachers, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. Therefore, personally, I take what I'm doing, I know Brother Gore does, Brother Mark does, what I'm doing, what we're doing this week, very, very seriously before God. And for those who may want to seek leadership and teaching, be careful what you ask for. There is a real responsibility here. Sometimes you just get wrangled into something. You know, I'm on the tidings committee, and Brother John was talking to Brother John Balello, who had been the original chairman, and I don't know how I ended up on the committee, and then how I ended up as the chairman. It was like, don't I get a say? You know. Be careful what we ask for. There's a big responsibility when we want to take on certain roles. Let's just step back and look at why these men, these brethren, these faithful, original faithful, strong rulers, leaders, recognized brethren are not memorable. Back into Numbers 13:27. They reported to Moses. And when they went into the land where you sent us, indeed, it's flowing. This is their report. Indeed, it's flowing with milk and honey, and here's some of the fruit. Okay, that's what God said you're going to find. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. However, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We also saw the descendants of Anak there. Okay, good to know. You know, that's part of the message you're supposed to go tell me. Big, strong, weak, fat, lean, whatever. Walls, no walls. The Amalekites are living in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. I heard the promises, right? God already told them who they were going to find there. No surprise there. But Caleb was listening. And Caleb quieted the people because he could hear them start to murmur the way these brethren talked about these things that were obvious and known before they even got there. Caleb could sense what that little word, however, meant. He knew what was coming next. Remember, he had been with these other brethren for 40 days. He would have heard the chatter, you know, as they were moving through the... Do you see that one? You know, Shaquille O'Neal's this tall. That giant is like massive. They didn't know Shaquille O'Neal. A 7-foot basketball player was nothing compared to what they saw. And so what does he say? He jumps in right away. I mean, you got to live this story. I mean, I love this brother. I really do. So if I get on the soapbox here, just forgive me. And if we see a 5-minute warning, let's just ignore that. But we must go up and take possession of land because we can certainly conquer it. He jumps right in before they get to say anything more. Because he could sense what's going on as there's 3 million people, 2.5, 3 million people being affected, and just starts rolling through the crowd. But the men who had gone up with him respond, we can't go up against this people because they are stronger than we. That's completely true. They are stronger than you, but they are not stronger than God. That was the point. They were looking at it with the arm of the flesh, not with the arm of God. And so they gave a negative report to the Israelites about the land they scouted. And we pass through and explore. It's a land that devours. King James says, eats up its inhabitants. And all the people we saw are men of great size. Even the Nephilim are there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. To ourselves, we seem like grasshoppers. And we must have seemed the same to them. The second part's an assumption. Did they even take any notice of them? You know, just a few runts running around the countryside. They were thinking too much about themselves and their fear. So let's jump ahead to Numbers 14 and verse 6. I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Bible in this one. Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who are among those who scouted out the land, tore their clothes. This is how serious, how impassioned they felt about this. This is a serious concern about the fear their brethren instilled in the whole nation. The whole community was now they could see them being paralyzed. And they said to the entire Israelite community, the land we passed through and explored is extremely good land. That's what his brethren said. They just said, flowing with milk and honey. So he repeats it back. And he will bring it, if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us into this land, a land flowing of milk and honey, and give it to us. And notice he repeats it, but he adds 2 important facts that they left out. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will give it. What would please the Lord? But to obey. Move forward. I'm giving you the land. That's it. Trust me. Only don't rebel against the Lord. How did Caleb know this principle from 1 Samuel 15 and 23 about King Saul? For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as the iniquity of idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected thee from being king. He has rejected thee. Brethren, if you go forward with this, he is going to reject you if you don't obey. He knew this before those words were said. Why? Well, in Exodus 23 and verse 20, well, it was back in, behold, I send an angel before you. This is what God told Moses, and Moses told the people. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep thee in the way, to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, obey his voice, provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Caleb pleads with this in mind. They all heard the same thing he heard months before. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. For mine angel, what a picture. Wouldn't you just, the energy behind this. For mine angel shall go before thee to bring thee into where? Just what you just reported. The Ammonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. I will cut them off. They were already told this before they spied. Just a little sidebar. Do you notice who was missing from that list of nations? The Kenizzites. Could it be, just perhaps, that they had been conquered by the Egyptians and brought into captivity, where Jephunneh the Kenizzite and his tribe were now grafted in, and therefore they're already going to be part of the inheritance when they come into land? I don't know. History doesn't tell us, but they're not here. Maybe they were consumed by one of those other nations along the way. But just an interesting thought. Now, back to Numbers 14, verse 9. Here's what Caleb says. Don't be afraid of the people of the land. What does he say? For we will devour them. He repeats back to them their own words. We will devour them. Just like he said, it's flowing with milk and honey. If the Lord be pleased, we will devour them. They are bread for us. I love that. That's the King James Version. They are bread for us. Does that mean they're toast? Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. Isn't that what we just read? Don't be afraid, that the Lord said to them. And with those words, the people said, right, let's go. No. The whole congregation, verse 10 of chapter 14 of Numbers, the whole congregation threatened to stone them. I'm going to make an observation here, that the power of fear sometimes can be stronger than the power of faith, only if the faith isn't fully developed in there. Why did they want to stone them? Because of fear. But that faith had to be personally developed and set in the mind and heart before fearful things come. That's what Caleb had done. That's why we covered that in the foundations of his faith. He had developed that. They had the opportunity to do that. Maybe they took it all for granted, being natural-born Israel. They just took all those promises and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and the creation, all that stuff. But he came in with bright eyes on this, just absorbing it like a sponge. I was in technology sales for about 40 years before I retired. Wonderful institution retirement, by the way. We'll talk about that later, though. I sold various technologies that could have saved customers tens of millions of dollars at times, and I kind of present it that way. I'm like, it's not moving the needle. Then I learned something about human nature. It was the avoidance of some pain or fear that would motivate them more times than not to move. 3 times as many times, somebody would make a decision because they wanted to get rid of some pain or some fear of something happen. Like if I talked about a security system for a company, and you could have all this security and da-da-da. Oh, and by the way, if you don't install something like this because you're negligent, you could go to jail. Ooh, that was a motivator. I don't want to go to jail. All the good things that the security was going to do, but as soon as it personally affected me, changed. And these men hadn't developed the faith of Caleb. They took it for granted, the things of God. I'm going to ask, because I haven't seen a thing and I didn't put my own clock up there. How much time do we have? How are we doing? Lots of time?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. See, I was ahead of the 5-minute warning. That's good. Melting hearts. I want to read something. Joshua 14. Here's what Caleb said. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the hearts of the people melt, but I wholly follow the Lord my God. Simple word. Read through it. What made it so wrong about melting hearts in fear? What Caleb said. He chose that word specifically. You know why? This is what I come to find out. I didn't know this before this time of doing this class. That's what God does against his enemies. Psalm 46 and verse 6. The heathen raged, the kingdoms are moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. Psalm 97. The mountains melt like wax at the presence of the Lord, in the presence of the Lord of all the earth. Isaiah 13, the oracle against Babylon that Isaiah, son of Amos, said, therefore every man's hand will become weak, every man's heart will melt. Nahum 2 and 7, Nineveh's exile has been decreed, and all the servant girls mourn for its capture. The city is plundered and emptied and ruined. Hearts melt and knees shake. The people stand aghast, their faces pale and trembling. And then in 2 Peter chapter 3, but the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and on that day the heavens will pass away with a loud noise, and the elements will be burned and dissolved, and the earth and the works disclosed. I'll go to the end. The heavens will be on fire and dissolve, because the elements will melt with heat. They make it clear the only one who does the melting is God. You don't make your brethren's heart melt. Exodus 15. They were told this, by the way. Pharaoh's chariots and his army was hurled into the sea. This is Moses' song that they all know. The finest of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the sea. I always miss that word, the finest, the best. With your unfailing love, you lead the people you have redeemed. In your might, you guide them to your sacred home. People hear and tremble. Anguish grips those in Philistia. They haven't even arrived yet. They just got through the Red Sea. The leaders of Edom are terrified. They know you're coming. The nobles of Moab tremble. All who live in Canaan melt away. Terror and dread fall upon them. The power of your arm makes them lifeless as stone till the people pass by. That's what he told them. That's where we're going. That's what God's doing for you right now. The process has started. They didn't know it was 2 years, but we've got 2 years to get ready. We're going in there, and God's going to just open that door. 40 years, right? They're going to end up on it. They had 40 days to discover that. All they saw was fear. They didn't see what God was really doing to the people. They just had to walk in. Jericho could have happened then, 40 years before. The walls could have fallen down right then and there. 40 years later, I love this. I just love this. 40 years later, Joshua sends 2 spies. No more 12. We don't need 12. We just need 2. 2 faithful spies. Joshua 2 and 10. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea. This is Rahab talking. 40 years after it's happened. How you dried up the Lord, Yahweh, your God. We even know his name. He dried up the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what he did to the two kings of the Amorites on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, and whom you utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God above heaven and earth beneath. Was she saying, where have you been for the last 40 years? We've been in terror, and then you didn't come. But the terror came back. The terror came back, and their hearts were melting now. He was melting the hearts of the king. What a tragedy, brothers and sisters. That didn't need to happen. That 40 years did not need to happen if they had just followed Caleb, that example, that exception, and believe and trust in God. Thank you, brothers and sisters.